I think this is the closest they've been in the Matthews era to winning the cup, this roster.
Really?
Yeah.
More so than the hype around last year?
Yeah. I would definitely think so. I think this team is more complete. If you look at their back end, especially, I would take Brody over Barry. I would
Yeah,
take
but you're saying that in hindsight. I think there was last year I was feeling a lot more confident than I do this year because
really. So yeah, NHL. I want to talk some Toronto Maple Leafs. I haven't really heard your thoughts on what the Leafs have done. So what are your thoughts on what Kyle Dubas has done with this team? Simmons, Bogosian, Joe Thornton. Like they got some big names, some depth guys, veterans who can help out the squad. TJ Brody, the big name there. Let's start off with the first signing, Wayne Simmons. 1 year, $1.5 million a year. You like the signing?
I think they needed a guy to come in and replace Clifford. I think he would have been kind of a big hole losing him. I think $1.5 million is a decent price for Simmons. He's shown in the past he has a bit of offensive upside. The last couple of years obviously have been a bit down, but I think he has more offensive upside than Clifford, which is important when he's probably going to be playing with a guy like maybe Robertson, who's kind of a faster, skilled guy. So Simmons can maybe keep up with him a little bit, chip in with, I could see him maybe getting 10 goals next year, which I think would be a good number for him. But yeah, I think it was important to get a replacement in there for Clifford, a guy that can step up with a hit or a fight or things like that, which is something that this lineup really lacks. And you know my thoughts on that. But yeah, I think it was a good signing, good for the cost. Yeah, I overall I don't think it's gonna move the needle that much, but I think it was a decent signing, a guy that we needed to get, and Dubas got him. So yeah, I like that signing for sure.
Yep, I'm on the same page. I like the signing a lot. He's versatile throughout the lineup. He can play on the first line, second line, third line, fourth line if need be. Play on the power play. Good leadership. Veteran guy's been around the league for a while. Physical presence. Good guy in the locker room. I think it's the perfect signing, and to get him for 1.5 is very good. I think he still has some hockey left in him. I know the past 2 years haven't been the greatest for him in terms of goal production and stuff. But he played on New Jersey and he played on Buffalo. They aren't the greatest teams. If you put him with our offense, I think he's going to get at least 10 goals next year. So yeah, it's a great signing. Next signing, I guess, was TJ Brody, the big defenseman who we expected them to go after. Not the right-handed defenseman, but still a guy who can play on the top pair with Morgan Riley. I believe it was 4 years at 5 mil, 4.5, 5.
Yeah, 4 years, 5 million.
4 years, $5 million. What are your thoughts on this signing?
At first, I thought it was a good signing. I knew us getting Peter Angelo was kind of a real long shot. I didn't really realistically see that happen. So Brody was kind of the second name on the board. So I thought if we can get him, I think it's a move, even just for publicity's sake, that Dubas had to make. I think every Leafs fan was saying you need to do something about the defense. So we went out and got the best guy that we could realistically get. I think Dubas kind of alluded to the fact we weren't ever really close with Peter Angelo at all. We just didn't have the money to get him. So yeah, I think it was an okay signing. Since we've got him, I've heard some things. Maybe he could be kind of a Gardner Barry type, where he might not be as willing to get into the corners, do the dirty work in the defensive zone. I haven't really seen him play much.
That's not what I've seen from him. Like, based on the highlights that I've watched, I think he is more defensive. From what I've seen, I don't think he's just going to be strictly an offensive threat. I think he's actually a guy who will be a good penalty killer for the team. Will be good in the defensive zone. Is good at stick checking. Maybe not the best at battling, like you said, like hitting guys and fighting for the puck in the corner. But I think just in terms of defensive instincts, he is good. But he's not the biggest body. But then
Hmm.
I guess with the next signing, we can talk about that. But where do you see Brody playing on the Leafs? Like, do you think he's gonna play on the first line with Riley? Do you think he's gonna play with Muzzin? Power play time?
I think they'll probably split him up with Muzzin. I think it would make sense to probably have Muzzin down on the second pair, and put Riley and Brody together. I
Okay.
think that'd be a good mix. I think maybe late in a game if we're down, Keefe might decide to stack that line, go Muzzin and Riley. But I think for the most part throughout the season, it'd be good to keep those two guys separated, to just have more balance, because we all know our defense, even with the Brody signing and Bogosian, who I'm sure we're going to talk about next, still is looking a little bit iffy in my opinion. Yeah, so I'll probably see him. I think we'll see him up with Riley most of the year, and we'll see what happens. I doubt he gets much playoff. I doubt he gets much power play time.
Uh-huh.
Maybe some odd chances on the second unit. I don't think he will supplant Riley up on the first unit at all, unless Riley really starts to struggle. And like you said, he'll probably get some time killing penalties too. Maybe they go with Muzzin and him as the top penalty killing pair, to see how they can do. But yeah, I think like I said, it was just a move that needed to be made. I think it's a good signal to the fan base that Dubas is recognizing that defense was our weak point, that we're not going to win a series with Marincin and Hall playing 20 minutes a night. So I think it was good for him to address a need there and get the best guy that we could realistically get. So yeah, overall it's hard to judge signings without ever, because like I said, I think both of us haven't had a good chance to watch Brody play, being him out on the West Coast with Calgary. It's really not in our time zones. We don't get to see those games as much, but we'll maybe have to reevaluate a couple weeks in, see how he's doing.
Yeah.
But as of right now, on paper, it was a signing that needed to be made. So as of right now, I think it's a decent signing for the Leafs.
Yep. I think it's good. You're right. It had to happen. They had to find a guy who can actually play with Riley. I do think he's gonna be their second line defenseman. Or sorry, their second power play defenseman. With the four forwards. I think he is a little bit more offensive than Muzzin, I would say. But I still think he's very good defensively. Like, I've seen his underlying numbers and they're pretty good. And then the eye test as well, from what I've seen in the highlights, he's pretty good. I think defense comes first with this guy, not so much Gardner and Barry. So, I mean, I could be proven wrong. I hope not, Brody. I'd rather you just play, strictly defensively, put up maybe 20 points next year, and just have a good plus minus and play good in your own zone. I think that's what the Leafs need, and they address that more with Zach Bogosian, which broke midway through the last podcast. So they get Bogosian to play in a top six role, and I love the signing. It's a great signing. He's a right-handed defenseman, physical. Just won the cup with Tampa Bay. I watched a lot of that series. I watched a lot of Tampa throughout the playoffs. I really liked what I saw from him. There was talks about the Leafs getting him during the season as well. But I think there was Dubas said that, or Bogosian said that he had an interview planned with Bogosian right before the David Ayers game happened. But then the Ayers game happened and that interview got canceled. So I guess it works out because the Leafs got him now. 1 year at was it 1 mil? Yeah, 1 year, 1 mil for Bogosian. I love the signing. Tyler, do you like the signing as much as I do?
Yeah, I think 1 year, 1 million, you can't really go wrong. I think bringing in a guy who went all the way is big. I think he's a big physical presence that there on the blue line. I think it's a great story. He'd been injured for so long. He was part of that big trade with the Sabres and the Jets a few years ago, the Evander Kane deal. But he never really got a chance to play with Winnipeg, just with injuries. So I think it was a great story this past year to see him finally get back in the game and stay healthy. So yeah, I think it's tough to find issue with this signing. If it doesn't pan out, it was 1 year, 1 million. Nothing crazy. He's not gonna revolutionize the team, but I think he's gonna make a positive impact. I think it opens up a bit more options on defense. Like, he could be a good guy to pair with maybe Sandin on the bottom pairing there, give him a good veteran guy with some defensive responsibility to play along with him and help him develop. Or he could, yeah, I think he'll probably slot in on the third pairing all year. I don't know if he's a top four guy. I think he'll get a good amount of penalty kill time as well. I think it's, yeah, I think you can never have enough defensive defensemen, even if he might not play every game. It's still great to have kind of 7 or 8 defense that are all NHL caliber, not Martin Marincin, that can kind of come in and play games. Yeah, so like I said, I don't think you can find much bad to say about that signing.
Yeah, it's starting to look like they actually have some depth on defense, and they still have to sign Travis Dermott. But yeah, they have Sandin, like you said. They have Liljegren. They have Marincin if they need to go to him, who's good in his.
I pray it doesn't come to that, but
Yep.
I will definitely be expecting him to get in a handful of games this year, and that'll be unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to go with guys that aren't the most reliable. You just hope by the time the playoffs get around, we won't have to lean on
Yeah.
him. But
I think, the only way he sneaks into the lineup is if there's injuries, because I would have Sandin and Dermott and Mikko Lehtinen ahead of him. And I hope Sheldon would as well. If we take a look at the lines now, we got Riley Brody at the top. Then it's, as of right now, I guess we can say, because Dermott isn't signed yet, it would be Muzzin and Justin Hall. And then on the bottom pair, you could go with Sandin. I would go with Mikko Lehtinen. And then on the right side, you have Bogosian. What are your thoughts on the lines? Is that good enough for you, or do you think they have to go out and get another guy, probably on the right side, to replace Hall? I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Hall's a nice story, I guess. Kind of an under the radar guy who's risen up through the AHL, won with them, and then he's come in and he's played well when he's been in. I don't think he's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL, especially for a team with the aspirations of the Leafs. I don't think he's a guy that should be playing 20 minutes a night in the playoffs. So in an ideal world, we would go out and get a second pairing defenseman. Right now, with the fact that we're right up against the cap and we still don't have Mikheyev or Dermott signed, I think a move has to come. Whether or not it's trading Dermott or Mikheyev, trading a guy in our lineup, I think a move for sure is coming. We'll see what that materializes into. I think Hall is a decent trade chip if we look at that route. He is 3 years at $2 million a year, which is quite reasonable. I think like I said, he's shown he's an NHL caliber defenseman. I think on most playoff teams he's a 5th or a 6th guy, but he's a solid guy down there. Like I said, in an ideal world, we would be going out and getting a second pairing defenseman. I think Dubas is probably looking at trades for that position as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't get that, I mean, it's definitely not the end of the world. Lehtinen, we could give him a shot with Muzzin. I really didn't know much about him. One of my friends told me he won Defenseman of the Year in the KHL. So on paper, that sounds promising. The last Russian defenseman we brought in didn't obviously pan out exactly how we would have liked.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's, I think that might be more management fault giving him such a giant contract.
But he's not Russian, right? Lehtinen is Finnish, I believe.
Oh, Finnish. Well,
KHL defenseman, you mean?
Yeah,
right?
KHL more so, but yeah, I guess Lehtinen is a Finnish name. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Lehtinen getting a shot in the top 4, maybe a tiny bit of power play time in preseason. Maybe to start the season, if he shows what he can do in preseason, he might get some power play time in the regular season. I'd love to see Sandin get a shot in the top 4. I know it might not work out with left-handed, right-handed defensemen, but I think he's a guy that should get more games than he got last year. I think at this point in his development, the AHL another year down there won't really do him much good. I think he deserves to be an NHL defenseman. So it'd be nice to see him getting some shots in the top four. I think
Yeah.
realistically he'll spend, once he gets into the lineup, probably on the bottom pairing. But yeah, I think you touched on it before with the fact that we have a lot more depth this year than we did this time last year. I think I feel a bit better about our options. To me, it's just about lining up the guys that are better than Marincin. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, I think we have 7 guys that are better than Marincin. So I feel good that Marincin will not get in the lineup anytime soon, barring any crazy injuries or coronavirus outbreaks on the team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel better on defense than I did last year, but that's, who knows what's going to happen. Like you said with
Anything can happen. Like
yeah,
Brody could turn into Tyson Berry, and then
yeah,
it's the same thing as last year. The thing with Sandine, like this guy has to play. Like he has to play at some
hmm
point. He can't just be their healthy scratch, and especially if there's no AHL to send him to. There might not be an AHL, right?
very
So like you
true.
can't
Yeah,
just have him sitting there. Do they? Can they let him sign with a team in Switzerland where Joe Thornton's playing and he can just play there potentially? You never know, because I think the Bogosian move says a lot, because you sign Bogosian, you expect him to be in the lineup, like in the important games and in the playoffs. So that kind of moves Sandine out of the lineup, especially if you bring Dermott back, right? Because then Dermott's on the bottom pair with Bogosian, and then you still have Hall. Maybe they go with 7 defensemen. I don't know, but like they have to play Sandine, and you'd in an ideal word in an ideal world you play Liljegren as well. But where do you play them, right?
hmm
Um, I think there will be a trade coming. I think it's going to be Kerfoot. Um,
yeah. I was gonna say, I'm sure we were gonna talk about the trade. I was gonna say, for me, Kerfoot would be the number one guy. I think before Kerfoot it was Janssen, and we saw he got dealt for Joey Anderson.
yeah,
Um, I feel like we could have got more, to change topics a little bit. I feel like we could have got a bit more for Janssen. I think teams knew we were in a cap crunch, so we didn't have as much leverage as we could have. But it was sad to see Janssen go for such a small
yeah.
for
I
such
was
a small
expecting
return.
at least a draft pick as well in that trade.
Yeah,
Like I can't
yeah.
you can't sleep on Joey Anderson, because he's a good player. Like he was captain for the United States under 18 team. He's had, a good performance playing with their development camp. He is good defensively apparently, which is what the Leafs need. Um, but yeah, like as soon as the trade happens, you're like, who is this guy, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what Leafs fans' initial reaction was. And still, like looking at it more and more and reading more about Anderson, and he is a good player. He might be a top 9 guy in a couple of years for them, but it's Andreas Janssen who is a top 6 guy right now.
hmm
You could probably get another prospect or a draft pick as well. I know there was rumors that Janssen could have gone to Florida, and they could have got Mackenzie Weegar potentially. It could have been Janssen, and it could have been Dermott going back in a package deal for Mackenzie Weegar. I would have done that, because I don't know if you've been listening to the Big League, which is the one I got with Connor, but I think Dermott isn't very good. I don't think Dermott is good. So
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat. I've been saying the same thing for a while. Yeah, I don't know. To me, he doesn't pass the eye test. Whenever he's out on the ice, he plays hard, and he plays with a lot of passion, which is something that I think a lot of guys on the Leafs lack a little bit. I think he's a little bit gritty too. He doesn't mind getting in the corners and playing a rough game. But to me, I think he still makes a lot of rookie mistakes. I think he can be soft on the puck at times. I think he can be a little bit quick to make a pass that he probably shouldn't make, or should take a little bit more time to see what he can do. Yeah, like I definitely don't have full confidence in him when he's on the ice. He's definitely not a guy that I would like to see play more than 10 or 12 minutes in the playoffs.
wow, yeah,
So yeah, I could definitely see him getting moved. The fact that I've heard so little I've heard a lot about Mikheyev and his arbitration. If it's going to go to arbitration, they're working out a deal. I've heard a lot of back and forth on that, but I've kind of heard silence
Nothing.
on Dermott.
Yeah.
So I think that could kind of signal the fact we might be looking to deal him.
Hmm.
I think, like you said, the Bogosian signing says a lot. Whether it's, I think that kind of brings it down to, do we trust Sandin or do we trust Dermott?
Yeah.
And we can't have both, because we need to sign Mikheyev, and we're right up against the cap now. So unless we would need to trade two guys, probably Kerfoot and Hall, maybe.
Yeah,
If
Hall's making a
we,
little bit much too, like $2 million. Like $2 million for a guy who's gonna play like on the bottom pair is pretty good, but not on the Leafs. Like they need the $2 million. They got to free
yeah,
that up.
exactly. They need the $2 million. So I think, and I don't know if that's a move they're going to want to make. It seems to me that Dubas and Keefe have a lot of confidence in Hall. I think.
It's the same with Dermott though. If you listen to Kyle Dubas's interviews, like he always talks about Dermott being part of their future plans, but I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. Like they want to give Dermott the playing time. He's saying that he likes his growth. He likes the improvement that he's been making. And I'm sure like there's so many Travis Dermott fans in Leafs Nation. They love Travis
Yeah.
Dermott
Oh yeah.
and,
Like
and the
I have.
story and everything.
Yeah.
Homegrown
Yeah.
guy, right? But at the same time, like they're getting rid of some of the younger guys. Like Johnson's gone, Kapanen's gone, Kerfoot might be gone. Dermott is kind of falls into that category now where he's been in the league for, 3 years, maybe 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
And there hasn't been too much improvement with him. And it's kind of looking like he's gotten worse. And I think they want him to develop more into that defensive style of play. And he just hasn't. Like in his first year, he was able to rush the puck more. He was playing, more offensive, and he was
Mhm.
getting a chance on the second power play line. But now it seems like he's on the bottom pair. He's getting some more opportunities on the penalty kill. I just don't see him as that defensive player. I don't think that's what the Leafs need. They have Riley already. They have Sandin, who's going to be offensive. They have Liljegren, who's going to be offensive probably. Do they really need Travis Dermott now? And especially in a year now that they need the cap space, I think they move on from him because you can get something for him.
Yeah.
So
No, I could see that. He definitely has a market out there. There's a lot of teams that aren't in a position to win right now that would be looking for a defenseman just about 10 or his prime. I think in the, like you said, it looks like he's gotten worse. I think probably on the Leafs in this system, I think he's shown what he is and what he can be in this system. I think if he moves on, gets a fresh start, I think he could be a top four guy at some point in his career. I don't think he can do that on the Leafs, especially just with all the guys they have queued up in front of him. And I think it's just another case of a guy being forced into a role he might not necessarily be comfortable with. We saw that with Spezza last year, where they were expecting him to be fourth line center, tough, gritty guy when he hasn't been that in his career. He's been a skilled player. Obviously, he's slowing down with his age, but it seemed like Babcock was trying to paint him into a corner, give him this role that he might not have been ready for. So it kind of smells of the same circumstance with Dermott, where, like you said, his earlier time he was getting more offensive opportunities, more shots on the power play. Now he's on the bottom pair, expected to just play defensively on the penalty kill, play defensively. So yeah, I think on a team where he could play more minutes and play more offensively, I think he could show the type of player he could be, but I just don't think that's the Leafs.
yeah,
And I think with the cap crunch we're under, which it seems like we're always under, and I think we will always be under, we could
yeah,
see him move. And yeah, like you said, we could get something for him. We could package him with Kerfoot for another defenseman or just draft picks. I don't know. It would suck to lose two roster guys for just draft picks. So I don't think Dubas would make a move like that. I think if we're going to give up two roster guys, we would get a roster guy in return.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We have a lot of options. Like it
Yeah.
seems like we have every year. It can go a million different directions. So yeah, I would not be at all surprised to see Dermott and or Kerfoot off this team before next season starts.
Yeah. And I think even if they trade them, like they could trade them for, a top four defenseman who plays on the right side, but you could also just do it for prospects and draft picks, and then go out in free agency and get a guy like Sammy Vatanen or Travis Hamonic, who are still available, and their prices are probably a bit lower now since they've obviously lasted another like 2 weeks since free agency started. So obviously the market isn't there for those guys. You might be able to get them at a lower price. Let's talk about the big signing now. Joe Thornton. That was surprising. I never thought it was going to happen. I thought he was set on returning to San Jose. He's going to retire there, and he still might retire there. He could go back next year. Not if he wins the cup. I'll tell you that. If he wins the cup, I think he's done. But yeah, 1 year, league minimum, $700K, which was huge for the Leafs. Like, I like the signing a lot. Like, I know he's 41 years old. He's not the same player that he used to be, but he's still one of the game's best passers. He's going to be a huge addition in the locker room, and on the bench too. I think the Leafs need a guy on the bench who's going to be more vocal. It's going to be Joe Thornton. Like, it's a great signing. He's going to probably play third or fourth line, depending if they trade Kerfoot or not. I think if they do trade Kerfoot, then Thornton's going to play third line center. If they keep him, then probably fourth line center, unless they decide to move Kerfoot to the wing. But you never know. But then he's going to play on the second power play, most likely. It's a great signing. I really like it. Tyler, what are your thoughts on it?
Again, it's kind of like the Bogosian signing. You can't go wrong with a guy for that little money. He brings tons of experience, tons of poise, tons of I think accountability, tons of passion. He's won not the Stanley Cup, obviously, but he's won at international level. He's played with Tavares in the past, for example, so they might have a little bit of chemistry there. Tavares being the captain, it will be good to kind of have Thornton to feed off of as well. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, not a signing that's going to blow this team out of the water, make us a shoo-in for a long playoff run, but I think it's tough to say that it was a bad signing. To me, it's tough thinking we might have two guys. I'm not sure how old Spezza is. He's in his late 30s,
Yeah,
I
38
think.
or
So
something. Yeah.
two guys in their late 30s, early 40s as our potential 3-4 center. I think that's a little bit scary going into a season with two guys of that age. I mean, Spezza showed last year he can play a full year and stay healthy, but who knows, with that age, an injury could spell disaster. And I just don't know how much depth we have up the middle anymore. Frederick Gauthier is gone. If we trade Kerfoot, he'll be gone too. So we might have to get creative, maybe move Nylander back to center, make moves like that if we see injuries. So I think that's one thing to consider. I think, like we said, the Bogosian signing, kind of the writings on the wall for Dermott or Sandin. I think this might say the writings on the wall for Kerfoot, and he's looking like the main trade chip we have right now. You could, in a crazy universe, look at Nylander. I personally would not be too upset if we saw Nylander traded, but that's just me. I know there's a lot of Leafs fans that love him. I love him in the regular season, but I don't think he's a playoff player. But yeah, I think you could do a lot worse than Thornton in a third line center role. I just hope he can stay healthy, and giving a guy like, potentially we're seeing Robertson on that third line there with probably Wayne Simmons maybe. I think giving Robertson the chance to play with a guy like Thornton, with just that experience, would be great for Robertson at such a young age, to kind of give him that boost playing with such a good playmaker like Thornton. He still shows that he can make great passes even at his age. So I think it could spell a great year for Robertson if they get the chance to play together.
Yeah, I think Robertson definitely should get a shot. I could even see him in the top 6 potentially. Maybe they move Mikheyev down to the third line, put him with, as of right now, Kerfoot, and they also signed Jimmy Vesey, which we don't really need to talk about, but he's an option for for the third line. Alexander Barabanov is another option for the third line who they have. Simmons. Pierre Engvall, who is kind of hasn't really been talked too much about. As of right now, I don't think he would be in the lineup. I think he's a healthy scratch. Maybe we see him traded because he was signed to a contract over $1 million, and they might need that money. But he's also good on the penalty kill. He could play center if one of those guys gets hurt, then maybe they move him over to center. But I think this is probably, like, with the Thornton signing now, I would say this is the closest the Leafs have been, at least on paper. And it's tough to say on paper because we haven't actually seen them on the ice. But I think this is the closest they've been in the Matthews era to winning the Cup, this roster.
Really?
Yeah.
More so than the hype around last year?
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I think this team is more complete. If you look at their back end, especially, I would take Brody over Barry.
But you're saying that in hindsight. I think there was last year I was feeling a lot more confident than I do this year because we didn't know that Barry was going to put in the performance that he put in. I think there was a lot of hype around Barry. I thought he was going to be good. I felt good in Matthews and Marner keeping it up, Tavares keeping it up, but I don't know. Just the way we went out this year, I feel completely demoralized with this team. I don't think we're in a better place than we were last year. I think Tavares is looking slow already, and he has how many years to go on his contract at $11 million a year. I think Hall potentially being a top 4 guy for another year is scary, to say the least.
Okay, yeah.
I think Marincin still being on this roster is the scariest part.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna play though.
I don't think either, but just seeing his name and the healthy scratch still is gonna give me
anxiety,
terrible flashbacks and anxiety. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't feel like, maybe it's just because I just feel so.
You're so gutted out at this point.
So gutted and demoralized, but I feel like, I don't know if you can say we're in a worse spot than we were last year, but I definitely feel like the hype that there was surrounding the team last year, it's nowhere near that level this year.
Really? I'm the complete opposite way, because I think Dubas has done a phenomenal job this offseason. Like, I don't know if that's if that's wrong. I think he's done a good job though. Like, adding in the veterans, adding in more physicality to the team. I think they're more of a complete team now, because last year, they got Barry, they got Kerfoot, and that was exciting. I forgot. It was actually really exciting at the start. Tyson Barrie, you expect him to get 60 points. He's going to play with Riley. They're going to be dynamite. But then you also look at, okay, this team isn't going to be good defensively though. And now that season is past, things didn't go as planned, and now you know what they need. Dubas has done everything, I think, to help improve what they needed the most, which was defense and physicality. Simmons, Thornton, Bogosian, these guys are hungry to win. Bogosian knows how to win. Thornton's won on different levels. He hasn't won the Cup, but he's hungry. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be better than the Patrick Marleau signing.
For sure. No question about that. The Patrick Marleau signing, I think everyone knew it was too much money right off the bat. Too many years. The Thornton signing for me is better than the Marleau signing for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, that's just third line center doesn't really push the needle that much for the team. I agree with you in saying that, considering the constraints that are on Dubas, he's done the best that he could have done this offseason. But you again have to realize that the constraints that Dubas is under is completely Dubas's doing.
His fault. Yeah, true.
Signing these guys to massive deals, having seemingly no bargaining power, is why we're in this position where we've had to trade Kapanen. We've had to trade
Janssen.
We've had to trade it seems like it's a revolving door.
Marlowe.
We've had to trade Marlowe, giving up a first-round pick just for somebody to take a year of salary off our books. We're
Yeah,
gonna
you're
have to
right.
trade
Yeah,
Dermott, or we're gonna have to trade Kerfoot. I know trades come with building a team, but back to our baseball conversation, it seems like the homegrown pieces are the core of your team. And yeah, we have a good core with Matthews, Marner, Riley, Nylander, but you look at the guys. Janssen was grown here. Kapanen wasn't drafted by us, but he developed here.
yeah.
Trevor Moore
Trevor
developed
Moore,
here.
Dermott,
Dermott developed here. So
Justin Hall. Yeah.
just
Hmm.
seeing those guys leave, it's tough to build a culture on your team when your lineup has that much turnover. It seems like the last 3 years it's just been a revolving door there, and it's tough to build a winning culture when you have that much turnover in your lineup. Like,
That's true.
I look at
Okay.
our wingers, and it's on the wing. You can't say we're in a stronger position than we were last year
No, for sure.
in that position.
Winger is the place that we've taken the biggest hit for sure. We lost
Mm-hmm.
two of our best wingers, and we also might lose Kerfoot, who can play the wing. But I think in terms of defense, and that's what we need the most. We needed the defense, and we get TJ Brody, we get Bogosian, we might get another guy as well, and I think that's a win. I think you have to kind of even it out a little bit. I think keeping Frederick Anderson is also a big thing, not trading him, keeping him. I like him in net. And I think I think our offense will be okay without the depth on the wing, because I still think we have depth on the wing. Like, that was our strongest point, depth on the wing, right? And even when you trade Kapanen and Janssen, you still have Barabanov, you still have Mikheyev, you still have Jimmy Vesey. Who knows what he's going to be? And Janssen didn't have the best year. He was injured for most of it. Kapanen, he was okay. He didn't have the greatest year, but he can play on the penalty kill power play, so he's good special teams wise. Simmons will be good. I'm not concerned with the offense because we have the studs. We have Matthews. We know we're going to score goals, and we had to fix the defense, and I like the defense a lot more. And then I want to bring up, like, I guess we'll go back to baseball a little bit. I want to talk about the Jays back in 2015 when they brought in guys like Josh Donaldson, Russell Martin, Tulo, David Price, like veterans who have been around the league for a while, who bring in a lot of experience and who can still play. And that's what it seems like the Leafs have done. You know, Joe Thornton is kind of like the Russell Martin, I guess you could say. Wayne Simmons is like the Tulo or David. Well, he's not that big, but you get what I mean. Like, bringing in these older guys who can play. And I think that's what they need. I'm also looking back at, like, the Pittsburgh Penguins roster in 2009 and that mix that they had with the young guys and the old guys. Like, they had Sidney Crosby playing with Bill Guerin, a 21-year-old playing with a guy who's 38 years old, and that worked out. Ruslan Fedotenko, Max Talbot, Paul Bissonnette, and Ryan Whitney. Shout out to Spin Chicklets podcast. They had a good mix there, and I think that's kind of what the Leafs are trying to copy. You know, you need a good balance between the veterans and the young guys, and I think that's what they're doing. And I think that this is still the best team, or this is the best shot they have at winning the cup still. I have a lot more faith in this team than I did last year, to be honest. I think we're closer to winning.
Well, I mean,
I think we're closer to winning in the playoffs. Like, regular season, we might take a step back, but when we get into the playoffs and you add in the guys that we've acquired so far, we'll be a better playoff team. Do you agree with that?
I can see it. I mean, for me, I like you.
I can't picture us losing in the first round with guys like Joe Thornton and Zach Bogosian and Wayne Simmons. Like, they will not accept losing in the first round.
Yeah, but unfortunately, those guys are not our top players. It takes the guys at the top to step up, and
it's going to be a ripple effect, in my
I've
opinion.
said it once, and
Yeah.
I'll say it again. William Nylander, Matthews, and Marner are not playoff guys. yeah, they can go out and get a goal. Yeah, they can go out and make a big play, but they're not going to consistently in a 7-game series make every play that they need to make. And obviously not every play. Every player is going to make mistakes, and that's just part of being human. But they're not going to they don't do the little things. They don't I don't see them putting in that 110% effort that guys like you were saying, the 2009 Penguins. Sidney Crosby is always given 110%. Malkin, Letang, Fleury. Like you have that core group of 4 guys. Do you see anybody on this roster that looks like they're on the same level as those guys? Or you look at
Yeah.
the Capitals with you have Ovechkin and Holtby, obviously not last year, but when they won the cup, Ovechkin, Holtby, Backstrom. On defense, you have John Carlson. Like, I don't see our nucleus of guys matching up with the teams that have won the cup over the last couple years. I don't see the
I see
players
what,
on
yeah.
our roster putting in the same, not necessarily the same effort. I think it's something that you can't really teach. I think it's just something that some players have and some players don't, which is the ability to step up and play during the playoffs. Like you saw the Blackhawks, everyone was saying, "Oh, they'll be out." They performed above everybody's expectations, and that's because they have Corey Crawford, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Jonathan,
Not Seabrook, but yeah.
Patrick
Taves and
Kane,
Kane. Yeah.
guys, just guys that have been there, done that. They know what they need to do in the playoffs, and they go out and they do it. And for me, like I said, I don't know if you can teach that. I don't know if this series losing to the Blue Jackets, I don't know if you can say, oh, that'll be a wake up call, because I don't think there's a teachable moment where it clicks and they go, oh, this is what I have to do to win. I think some players have it and some players don't. Players like Thornton and Simmons and Bogosian can come in and they can
Help.
and show guys, but those guys are all third, fourth line guys, and it takes your stars to be your stars in the playoffs. And yeah, well, they might be putting up goals and points. I just don't see it on the full length of the ice,
Yeah.
offensive zone to defensive zone, then being able to put in the effort necessary for us to make it all the way in the playoffs. I'm not even going to say the words of the trophy that you win at the end. I'm not even going to say those 2 words because I don't want to put it in the same sentence as the Maple Leafs anymore. But I just don't see them having what it takes to make it all the way.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you're right about that, then we're not getting a cup for the next 20
Oh
years
yeah,
or whatever.
no, of course. If I'm right about that, yeah, if I'm right about that, this core group of players doesn't have a chance of winning, and that
Yeah.
sucks. But I think it's something that Leafs fans need to
To realize that.
recognize and
Yeah.
realize
Okay.
that
I
there's a
yeah.
distinct chance that we do not win the cup. My dad has been saying
Yeah.
this to me. This is probably my dad speaking and not me, but he's been saying, "Hey, we were this good in the '90s, didn't win a
You've told
cup."
me this. Yep. Uh-huh.
So I think Leafs fans, especially the ones even younger than us, need to recognize the fact that we might not win a cup with this group of players.
Yeah.
And
We might not win a cup with this group of 4 players, but in my opinion, I think Matthews has taken steps up. I think he can become that guy who is unstoppable in the playoffs. I think Tavares is a little bit on the decline, but he could pick it right back up next year if he plays with Marner. And I think Marner has potential to be that unstoppable guy in the playoffs as well. Nylander is ways away from that, though.
oh yeah, well I don't think any Leafs fans are putting them in the same ballpark. I think it's a big step down from, I don't
Marner
know if
to
you want to say
Nylander.
Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and then way down
Yeah.
Nylander. That would be my ranking of our 4 guys. Um, yeah, I think honestly, I would not love to see it, but I would not be upset to see Nylander leave in a trade this offseason. If it means getting another top 4 defenseman that has been proven in the league to show some defensive ability, I don't even care if we play the most boring brand of defensive hockey next year. If we have Brody, Riley, Muzzin, and another defensive guy, I don't know,
Uyghur.
even more than a Uyghur.
Yeah.
If Nylander is a
Right, true.
trade
If
chip,
Nylander is traded, yeah, we could get someone good.
we can get someone better than Uyghur. If we have those three plus another solid defensive
Like
guy,
Jacob Slavin on Carolina.
I mean, I think he's probably untouchable. But yeah, guys in that ballpark there, I think if we get another one of those guys and only have to give up a Nylander in return, I would be feeling probably
I,
the same as you're
yeah.
feeling about
I,
this team. We need another defenseman. Hall in a top four role is not going to get us playoff success.
okay, but like I still think we are going to get a top four defenseman. I think we'll trade Kerfoot and Dermott for a defenseman. I don't know if it's going to be the caliber as someone we would get for Nylander, but I think we'll get someone who can play on the top four. So you think that like here's where I'm at with Nylander. Like I like the contract. $6.9 million for a guy who can score 30 goals a year is very good. But in terms of the playing style in the playoffs, it's not worth the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then with Marner, it's the opposite. Like this guy's making a ton of money. I hate the contract, but I like him better as a player because of his work ethic and what he can be in the playoffs. So I don't know where Dubas is at, though. I think he's a bit stubborn. The fact that he signed all these four guys to big contracts, he wants to prove people wrong that, he can actually get it done. He said, we can and we will. He said that in terms of we're going to sign these four players. I don't know if he meant it in terms of we're going to sign these players and then win the cup. I don't know where he's at. And if I was Kyle Dubas, I'm definitely considering trading William Nylander, but I still think that there's a way around it that it could work. And I think that's what Kyle's looking at. I think trading Kerfoot is where he's at right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think trading Nylander would be a last resort. If we don't see significant success this year in the playoffs, I think Nylander should be out the door, and I
Yeah.
think Leafs fans will want him out the door.
Yep.
I think it's fair to say let's give him another chance. We do have the opportunity to maybe work around it by trading Kerfoot, Dermott, like you said.
If we're out in the first round next year, I think Kyle Dubas could be fired.
Oh, I hope he's fired. Yeah, he would need to be fired. I would think Keefe should be fired too, if we're out in the first round.
Maybe, yeah. Depends on the GM that comes in, but he might want his own coach. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would be surprised to see Nylander go. Just like you said, he signed all those guys themselves. Those were kind of his first moves as the GM to get those guys secured. So I think right now at this point it would be kind of a shock to see Nylander traded. Like I said, I wouldn't be upset about it.
Yeah.
But I would be shocked. Like I think most Leafs fans would be, especially with the chance to package Kerfoot and Dermott and maybe whoever else you want in a move for a defenseman. I just the one thing that's always going to be the thorn in our side is the cap, and with the cap not going up this year, who knows if it's going to go up at all next year. I mean, it should, but it probably won't go up as much as people were thinking it could have before COVID came in. So you just never know. And getting a top four guy, it comes with a price tag, obviously. Like you saw Brody for $5 million, which I think is fairly reasonable. Obviously, prices came down this offseason with the pandemic, but trading Kerfoot and Dermott not even being signed, that clears only $3.5 million in cap space, and we still have Mikheyev to sign. So it puts you in a tough position. Although he might not want to trade Nylander, he might see that he has to trade Nylander just with the cap predicament we're in right now.
Yeah. I don't know. He might have to, but I still think that Dubas is looking at other options. Brandon Pridham always has something up his sleeve. I think we'll sneak in. Like we'll have a good roster. We'll sneak in right below the cap. We're not gonna have any flexibility to like make moves at the deadline or anything. Like this is our team. Like unless we do trade Nylander or something at the deadline, which there's like no way that's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, Leafs are always fascinating to talk about. There's so much to talk about with this team.
Well, and then even the
Even
goalie situation, you touched on it a bit, keeping Anderson, but now we have Campbell as the backup. I think he's making 1.4, 1.5,
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. We just signed Aaron Dell to $800,000, I think, for a year. So that's more than $500,000 you're saving. They could, if Campbell puts in a couple shoddy performances, they might look at just shipping him out to somebody who will take him. They might have to attach a draft pick to him to
they
get
might have to
that
do
money
that.
off
Yeah.
the hands. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think signing Dell was a good move, just as depth. Who he'll be there if Campbell falls. He'll be there if there's an injury. I think I'm not sure exactly how good his numbers were. I think he's had one or two decent seasons. I think he's a really solid third option. And I think if
For
Campbell
sure.
stumbles, I think he would be a solid second option. And like I said, it's a chance to save another $600,000. And with the Leafs where they are, every cent counts. So that could be another move they've made. One thing I will give Dubas a lot of credit for since he's come in is he's given us flexibility. Although it sounds dumb to say that when he's tied $33 million up in 3 players, he has still managed to sign the pieces surrounding them to reasonable contracts. Even Nylander is a reasonable deal you could look at moving. Like you look at Jeff Skinner, for example, $9 million a year. You saw his performance last year. That contract is looking like another Kyle Okposo contract
Yeah.
for the Sabres. Kyle Okposo now is fourth liner, so he has done a good job at making the surrounding pieces movable, and you've seen them moved with the moves he's made so far. So I think he has been able to make the secondary players on the team flexible, and there's obviously downsides that come with that. We talked about the fact of having a lot of turnover every year might not be the best thing to build up a winning culture, but
Hmm.
sometimes you need change, and he
Sometimes it
has
works.
he has given the Leafs the chance to be able to make changes with the contracts he signed the secondary players
Yeah.
to. So
He hasn't
you're
been
going to give him
quiet
credit
too.
somewhere.
Yeah. He
That's
hasn't
what
been
you have to
quiet
give
at all. Like right when he came in, John Tavares, let's sign him up.
him. Yeah.
And then, making that Tyson Berry move. That's what the fans wanted. They wanted to get that defenseman, traded away Kadri, but you get a winger back / a center. That trade looked good. Like, you can't really complain. Like, nobody thought that trade was going to go as bad as it did. And then, the fans wanted some help on the back end this offseason. They wanted some help in the bottom six, and Dubas did that. I think he's listening to the fans a lot, which is something that the GMs in past years with the Leafs haven't really been able to do. They've kind of just done their own thing. But yeah, I want to talk about the Mikheyev thing a little bit. They got to sign him. There was a report today from Elliott that I think Mikheyev's asking for a 1-year deal at 2.7. And then the Leafs offered 2 years at, I believe it was $1 million.
Yeah.
So,
Per year.
yeah, what do you think he's going to end up getting? Like, I could see him getting somewhere in the low twos. And I think that's an acceptable contract. If the Leafs could get him for 2 years, that would be phenomenal. But I'm not sure. I think Mikheyev wants to take a 1-year deal that he can like bet on himself because he was injured for the end of last season. But if he's healthy, I think he could make around $3 million next year for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's more realistic that he'll get a 1-year deal. I think if it's a 1-year deal, it has to be around the $2 million mark. I think 2.7 is a bit steep for
Yeah,
just a 1-year deal. Yeah, with the cap crunch we're under right now, like I wouldn't want to go over more than like 2.2, 2.3 for a
yeah,
1-year deal for him. I think that'll probably end up looking like a good deal by the end of the year. Whether or not we're going to be able to re-sign him next offseason is a different story because we'll have Anderson if we're going to re-sign him or get a new goalie in. We'll have to deal with Hyman because I think I think losing Hyman would be an incredibly large blow to this team, more so than people think he would be. I think he's been kind of the ever-present guy. He hasn't gotten a lot of flack. He's just shown up. I think he's one of those guys we talked about playoff performance. He kind of embodies that for the Leafs, and he'll get a significant raise. If he wants to stay, he'll probably have to take a bit of a discount, whether or not he's going to want to do that. I think you could do a lot worse than playing with Matthews for the rest of your career. So I think it would be not wise of him to just look for money signing elsewhere. But if he wants to do that, that's his prerogative.
Yeah. If the Leafs re-sign him though, like he's probably going to ask between $4 and $5 million, and I don't know if they could afford that.
Well, that's what I mean. He could probably
Freddie would have to leave. You'd have to sign a goalie for cheaper. You'd probably have to move on from Morgan Riley then, and I don't know if the Leafs would want to keep Riley or keep Hyman instead. So I don't know. It's tricky stuff. Maybe at that point you trade Nylander or Marner. Marner would free up a ton of cap space if you get rid of him.
I don't think Marner's a movable contract.
Yeah.
I think those contracts they've signed aren't movable. I think the only one of the big four that's movable is Nylander, and I think when it comes down to it, we might just be forced to move him next offseason. I think next offseason will be even more interesting than this offseason, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a lot more.
Depends what happens.
Riley up? Is Riley a free agent after this year? I thought he had
he's got another. Yeah, he's got another.
Yeah. So at least it's not Riley and Anderson coming up. But yeah, there'll be some big names out there next year. So when we have this conversation next year, it'll be even more interesting than this year. But yeah, back to Mikheyev. I think he'll probably get a 1-year deal, kind of around probably 2.25 for the year. If we could get him at 2 years, $1 million per, that would be awesome. But that'd be amazing. We'll just have to wait and see. It would I like I said, with all the noise we've been hearing surrounding this, I think we'll get him signed. And once that happens, it'll just be kind of a waiting game to see what's going to happen with Kerfoot / Dermott / maybe even Hall. We talked about that a little bit. So
yeah, I think there could be a trade. I think the trade could happen before they sign him as well. So I mean, you never know. There could be a trade any day now. I think Kerfoot's name has been in rumors for, since the start of free agency, really. So it could happen any day. Like you said earlier, Dermott's name hasn't really come up at all in the arbitration talks. So maybe they're not even working on anything with him. It looks like they're prioritizing Mikheyev over him, which I would do as well. But we'll see. I think that's it. I think we've talked about really everything we need to about the Leafs. So that wraps up the show. Thank you guys very much for listening. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up, and we'll be back next week. See you guys later. Take care and peace.